to the 5th show of What's Happening in Augusta. I'm John Picciotti, State Representative of District 108, which consists of Fairfield, Mercer, and Smithfield, and also, we can't forget, the fine people of Maine. Things are now starting to get a little hotter as we get close to the end. We will soon be in session 5 days a week and doing a lot of bills that still need to be voted on. There's approximately 180 plus divided reports that have not come to the floor yet. So we're scheduled to be out and done with our session on June 17th, but I'm not holding my breath to that level. And also, we have not seen anything from the budget yet. I expect that there will be something reported out probably starting, I'm going to guess, by the 1st of next week. Also, there was a proposal, which I thought was quite interesting, by Senate President Mike Thibodeau to identify unfunded demands by state government on towns and cities. And the proposal encountered a very favorable reception on Monday when it was introduced to the legislature. One of the problems we have is Augusta mandating unfunded things to the towns that towns have to pay for and maybe isn't even necessarily needed. So we're going to take a close look at that. There was another very strong bill. In fact, there was a legislative committee room that had standing room only and also included one of America's most storied political families. John F. Kennedy Jr. was here and made an impassioned argument about Maine's mandatory vaccination program. There were for and against testimony, and it will now go to a work session where it'll be voted either ought to pass or not ought to pass, or even come out as a divided report, and then we'll come to the floor of the House and the Senate and then go to the governor. The Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee also approved a plan to overturn the Board of Corrections and give the county jails back to local control. That is a big, big plus, particularly for Somerset County. It would give the county money that right now is being denied them. When federal prisoners are housed in the jail, money comes to the state to pay for those prisoners, and unfortunately went to this Board of Corrections, which in turn refused to give it to the county, putting our jail in a big hole, which is a big part of the county budget, which will make a big effect on our taxes. So we're very happy that this bill has come out. Also, there were two budget meetings held last week within the town of Fairfield. One was the SAD 49 budget and budget meeting, and the other was the annual town meeting, which is basically voting on the town budget. Now, the school budget did pass. However, it was reduced by $461,000. That was the money that was being put aside to pay for charter school kids that go to the charter school that they have to be paid for. Now, that money was taken out of the school budget because the state has in turn, within the Department of Education, said that they're going to fund the kids that go to charter schools now, and it is not going to be up to the district. So that money was taken out. There's still an awful lot of money there that would probably result in about a 10% tax increase to the people of Fairfield. The budget will now go to the general population. It's going to be voted on. I believe the 17th is the voting date. I'm not 100% sure. No, it isn't. But anyway, we need to check that on the town calendar. It'll go to a general vote. We need to get out and vote, and you vote either yes or no against with the budget. If you vote the budget down, it then goes back to the school board, will be reworked and hopefully lowered, and then comes back to the district for vote again. So that just gives you a little up. The town budget was voted through. on the at the annual meeting. Now, that is going to result in a very slight tax hike. It's actually the first tax hike, I believe, in the last 5 years that actually came out of the town, and it will be a slight tax hike. Unfortunately, it was needed. We did also get a vote through to purchase $900,000 worth of bonds to be able to start bringing our roads up to date. So instead of being every 30 years, we go back onto our regular schedule and get those moving forwards. And then we have to wait and see what the county budget is going to be, and depending upon that, then that will give us our tax rate, basically our mill rate for the next upcoming year. Going back to the state level, I did have, which I had talked about in the past, is my film bill. That film bill is a bill that was designed to bring in a $20+ million film studio, which would accommodate somewhere between 40 to 50 permanent jobs, and then also would create an atmosphere to bring in more films into the state, because film companies really love to work in this state. The problem is that we don't offer the proper tax credits that they get in other states and in Canada, and so we lose those films to those states. Those films would result in probably 1,000 jobs now, even though they're not considered permanent. If you have film after film coming in, they become a permanent job because these people are just going from film to film. Unfortunately, it was heard in the taxation committee. And in the taxation committee, for whatever reason, it came out with a majority not ought to pass. However, there was a minority ought to pass. So when it comes to the floor of the House, I personally will get up and move the minority report, and hopefully we can get enough votes to get this thing on track and moving forward. I do have talked to him, and I do have the support of the governor. If he gets this bill, he will sign it, and it will go into law, and we will get our film studio and everything else that goes with it, because I have been in contact with the people that are doing that. That's a big thing. The other thing, I think the reason taxation, the majority did vote that way, is because they didn't quite understand the bill. There is problems in other states that have these tax credits, but it's because their bills were actually written wrong. For example, I'll use Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, they get their tax credit, but they don't have to take it right now. They can wait 2 or 3 years and take that money. And that really messes budgets up, because all of a sudden, if you're sitting with a budget saying, okay, this year I know I got to pay X amount of dollars, and they don't take it, you got that surplus, but then they come back 2 years later and say, oh, okay, I want my money. It messes that budget all up. I've sat with the film studio gal Karen over at DECD. We put this bill together, and we eliminated those problems that the other states had with that bill. So hopefully we will get that through and they'll understand it. We need the jobs. I would prefer that bill to pass. That way we can leave the sign up in Kittery that says open for business, instead of having to go replace it with closed till further notice. Another important bill out there is my domestic violence bill. That bill, which is still not being reported out of committee, I believe it is something that is really needed in Maine.
Holly and Doug's Country Diner, a friendly, warm atmosphere where all food is homemade. Everything from eggs, including 17 omelets, to homemade pancakes and homemade sausage, gravy, and biscuits. For lunch, there's sandwiches, wraps, meatloaf, chicken tenders, baked haddock, country fried steak or chicken, fried haddock on Fridays. We also have vegetarian meats, serving breakfast all day. Daily specials for breakfast and lunch. Open every day, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Holly and Doug's Country Diner, Waterville Road, Norridge Walk.
I started Mainly Elder Care out of a love and passion for the elderly.
Kathy is a wonderful person, and she knows what she's doing.
It's like a big family, and your clients get to be family. No matter how you, like I say, no matter how you try not to, you just do.
We will not only be your caregivers, but we will be your advocates. Please call us today and set up an appointment. Let us be there when you can't.
There is a domestic violence call every hour and a half in the state of Maine. Plus, the other fact is that 50% of all homicides in a year, 50%, are due to domestic violence. The bill itself, it's probably not all for that's going to end domestic violence. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But what it does do is it gives major protection to the victim. The bail level is set very high. I put a $4,000 cash bail on that bill. Plus, if a person makes the bail, they have to wear a ankle bracelet, which they call that electronic device, which in turn is set up at the either police department, sheriff's department, or whatever. If the person committing the violence gets within a certain distance from the victim, an alarm goes off in that police department and a car is immediately dispatched to their house to protect them. The least we could do is save some lives, but we'll see how that comes out. I not normally like to speak about Washington politics, but this is just something that caught my eye the other day as I was reading it, and I think it's kind of sad, and maybe I think people need to take a look at it. When President Obama took office in 2009, there were 9.9 million people of color living below the poverty level. But as of 2013, there were 11 million people living below the people of color living below the poverty level. So how's the president's big government approach working? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's working very well. The overall percentage of Americans living in poverty level right now is 14.5%. But if let's break it down along racial lines. It's 12.3% of whites and Hispanics, and 27.1% of people with color. A lot of black people have voted for the president because they thought he would make things better and would know how to do it. Unfortunately, he has failed to do that. We're deeper in debt. Our economy is now growing. Obviously, if you look at it by the stock market, very slowly, but it is growing. But we've got more black people in poverty than ever before. So let's get away from Washington for a minute and go back to the final days of deciding, final days we've got now of deciding where the budget is going to, when it comes out of appropriations. It will be rolling out, as I said, very early next week, hopefully. This will show us what is proposed on how revenue sharing will be set out. Some of the rumors that I've hit back on with revenue sharing is I don't think that it's going to change, and I think it will keep our budget level, particularly for the next 2 years. So we should be all right at a town level if what I am hearing is correct. But we have to wait and see on what that level is. And a couple of other things is how tax will be rolled out, will be done in estate taxes. Right now, for example, estate taxes, Maine has a limit that on the first $2 million of your estate, it's eliminated. Anything over $2 million then gets hit with the estate tax. This has somewhat created a problem for some of the wealthier people in the state when they have retired, have moved out of the state to make Florida their place of residence. That doesn't mean they don't live in Maine anymore. What it means is they go to Florida for a little bit longer than they do live in Maine and stay there, become residents, because Florida has no estate tax. We lose their money, we lose a lot of other benefits that they have when they're here because they spend a good amount of money. The federal policy on estate tax is $5.5 million. Now, if we look at the $5.5 million situation, it's above my pay level as the $2 million is, but it's still, the point is that even if we raise Maine's level to trade off and become the same as the federal level, $5.5 million is a good amount of money, and I think we might be able to keep some of our retirees in the state from becoming Florida residents. The budget will have to be able to support the money that the governor has requested, his budget. So because we have a balanced budget amendment that can't be broken, it has to stay balanced in projected balance with the revenue that's flowing through. Our budget has to be the same. So anything that we look at, now there is some proposals out there for reduction and reducing state income tax and getting rid of it and that type of thing. We'll see what they come out with. From what I can gather, the budget will come out with a vote of both sides, so it will be a unanimous on both Republican and Democrat, and then it'll be up to whatever the governor has to do to pass it. One thing that if it does come out of unanimous, if it is voted in both the House and the Senate in a 2/3 manner, it technically becomes veto-proof. The governor would look at it. Even if he vetoes it, that would get probably overridden. So that's where we're at right now. We just have to wait and see what's going to happen and where things are going to go. The next thing that I'd like to take a short minute to talk about is my committee, which is Insurance and Financial Services. A very important thing has cropped up, and we've actually got a bill that to take a look at that. There has been a lawsuit filed in the Supreme Court to say that the federal exchange for health insurance that everybody in Maine uses, that the federal exchange cannot give subsidies to people. Now, what that means is the 60,000 plus Mainers that are on that federal exchange receiving subsidies would no longer be able to get subsidies for their health care. Now, their health care is very expensive, we know that, and the subsidies are well needed to keep these people, to keep them in health insurance. We have done a bill that says that, and it is very straight, strict language, if the Supreme Court rules for that lawsuit, then our bill says we would immediately start a state exchange so that those 60,000+ people that are getting subsidies would be able to move over to the state exchange and still retain their subsidies. If we don't have that, what actually would happen is of course everybody would lose their subsidies, meaning we would have more people on main care, we would wind up with people without insurance, charity cases, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have that bill that was passed out of committee, and then we'll be going to the House and Senate and then over to the governor. But as I said, it's very strict and says point blank, if the Supreme Court rules against that, then we will not have a state subsidy because the cost of a state subsidy is quite extensive. Now we have another bill that is very interesting. Right now, with your new health insurances that everybody has got, we'll go back a few years ago when you bought health insurance, you had a $500 deductible or a $1,000 deductible. Sometimes you might have even a $1,500. Today, pretty much everything is $2,000 and up. Some people are up as high as $4,000 and $5,000 deductibles on their health insurance. That means that if you have a minor procedure, something that costs $1,500 or $1,800, or you go have an MRI or whatever it is, and you haven't had paid your deductible, that comes out of your pocket. It goes towards your deductible, comes out of your pocket. There is a bill that we will be working on Monday, this coming Monday, which would be the 17th for people that are seeing this later on. But this bill is what they call a shopping bill. It's going to allow you to, if you've got to have one of those procedures and you haven't touched your deductible and it's all going to come out of your pocket, this is going to allow you to go to a website that it will be developed that will allow you in your area to shop all of the providers that have that could do this procedure. Could be 3 or 4 or 5 different ones. And it's going to allow you to shop, and they have to give you the correct whatever they charge for a price. So if you're going to have something done that the hospital says, okay, this is a $2,000 procedure, so it comes out of your pocket, goes towards your deductible. You can shop it, and you might find somebody 10 or 15 miles down the road that does the same procedure, and does it for $1,000. Now, all of a sudden, oh, we got a problem. Wait a minute, that provider isn't one of your insurance companies signed on to one of your insurance companies. Well, what this bill does is says, doesn't make any difference. You can go to that provider, you can pay the $1,000, excuse me, and you can take that $1,000 and it goes towards your deductible anyway. And we will be working out the finalities of that bill, as I said, on the 17th, and putting it in. The whole committee is working on it, so it will become unanimous and then go out to the floor. There are a few people around there, some insurance companies, et cetera, that don't particularly care for that, but it is what is best for the people today and what we have in the insurance market. The other thing that is very possible, we've lost a lot of doctors that are now part of the hospitals. They're all pretty much all work for the hospitals. They've sold their practices to the hospitals, and the hospitals are there. This might even be able to entice a few of them to reopen their private practices, which I think is also good for the people of Maine. The 22nd of this month is the day, which is the end of next week, is the day that says that all bills must be voted out of committee. That is the deadline. Now, going into that means everything has to be out so it can come out onto the floor. That deadline has to be met. So the committees are working right now practically round the clock, some of them, to get all of their stuff done. However, that does not help us on the House floor and the Senate floor. So we're in for a long, long ride in the next few weeks. And like I said, the 17th is the date we're supposed to get done, but I suspect that will be extended because we still have an awful lot of bills to hear, vote on, come back, go to the governor. Sometimes if the governor vetoes them, then they got to come back to us, and then we're going to have to go back in, et cetera. So it's going to be a long, hard time. And on my next show, I'll have a lot more information and be able to tell you where you're going. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you have a very great day.